In a world where when people hear the word murder, their first thought is of a college-age student trolling the club scene to pick up chicks. Fear not! There are thousands of us out there fighting to reclaim the definition. May I present the Hoffman Bird Club, the hunt for the red-headed woodpecker.
My story begins at 7:30 a.m., February 5th, a cold Saturday morning, about 10 degrees if we were lucky. A group of 28 birders assembled to embark on an adventure, a grand voyage to seek out birds that call Berkshire County home during the winter months. Great places to start birding are on hiking trails, near ponds and rivers, or your own backyard. While we didn't start at any of those, our day began at Ozzy's Steakhouse in Hinsdale, Massachusetts. The Hoffman Bird Club meets here every winter to join together with fellow birders who enjoy winter birding. I had the pleasure of sitting next to a gentleman by the name of Myron who told me all about the tip line. It's where local birders call in bird sightings. Spirits were high. A woman called in a sighting of a red-headed woodpecker. That's all most could talk about. So after swapping bird stories and stuffing our faces with greasy, yummy food, it was time to gear up and carpool on over to Skyline Road and Middletown Road in Washington, Mass. to look for the red-headed woodpecker. This was our first stop, and by far the longest. We were there about a half hour. 28 of us were outside of an elderly woman's home, peering in the direction of her backyard. Good thing she was the one who called in the tip. Although a few of her neighbors did stop and ask, "My God, what is going on?" Good thing Ed Newmith was there to eagerly say, "We're birders. We're looking for birds. We're trying to spot a red-headed woodpecker." As Ed tried to tell her more, the woman looked at him as if he had two heads, started to roll up her window and drive away. As we were looking for the red-headed woodpecker, we saw a downy woodpecker, cardinals, blue jays, and chickadees. There was still no sign of the red-headed woodpecker. Time was running out due to an ice storm that was heading our way, so we needed to move on. Our next stop was at the Upper Valley Road in Washington, Massachusetts. It was there that I learned the term life bird. A life bird, quite simply, is a bird that you have never seen before in your life. Many birdwatcher enthusiasts keep detailed records of the birds that they see. They might mark down the first time they see a particular bird species and record the time, date, and place of sighting. For me, that bird was the redpoll. I saw him for the first time on February 5th at 10:45 a.m. in Washington, Massachusetts. According to the Birds of Massachusetts Field Guide, the redpoll name is derived from the color and taking a poll or counting heads. Winters in Massachusetts, after summering in the far reaches of Canada, winter flocks of up to 100 birds are not uncommon. Bathes in open water or snow in winter. Much like the black-capped chickadee, it can be tamed and hand-fed. We also spotted a black duck. An interesting fact I learned about black ducks is that they have been known to breed with mallards. Some ornithologists are arguing that ducks such as mallards and black ducks should not even be considered a separate species but as morphs. Now it was time for the halftime pit stop. One of the Hoffman Bird Club members, my chauffeur for the day, Dave Monk and his wife, opened their home so that we could re-energize on an assortment of delicious homemade breads, Valentine's Day heart candies, chocolate, tea or coffee. The Monks have quite the spread for their birds as well. There were bird feeders all around the outside of their home. It was also the first time I saw water bottles used to keep the squirrels off of feeders. What they did was drill holes in the bottoms of bottles and strung them lengthwise on a 30-foot wire that ran throughout the holes and the open ends of the bottles. The 6 tube feeders hanging between the bottles were never touched by squirrels, which would have rolled off the bottles had they tried. Even though they had many feeders, I overheard Mrs. Monk tell her husband that she hasn't seen a bird all day. That is why she put up this picture of redpolls on the window so that we could pretend. I was pretty excited to see up close a picture of a redpoll when I noticed that one of them was not as red as the others. This is when I learned the phrase, hoary redpoll. It's not what you think. Hoary is spelled H-O-A-R-Y, meaning frosty. Unlike the similar common redpoll, the hoary redpoll is rarely seen. When it does show, it is in the company of the more numerous commons, but is separated by slightly larger but noticeable size, lighter overall shade, smaller build, and white rump, as well as a finer streaking on the front. Next we were off to Fossil Road, where we saw a pair of mourning doves. Then it was off to Lenore Drive. We saw a junco, tufted titmouse, Carolina wren, downy woodpecker, chickadees, crows, and siskins. There was a friendly disagreement between two birders on whether or not they were siskins or redpolls. So then out came the high-powered scopes to get a better look. They were siskins. On our way to Holiday Farm, Dave Monk shared with me that 70 million people watch birds, but 90% of them stay in their backyards. We only saw crows at that stop. Officially, Holiday Farm was our last stop, but some of us just couldn't give up the chance to see the red-headed woodpecker. So it was back to Washington Mountain. Unfortunately, we did not see him. One of the birders said that storms tend to drive them off. This journey had come to an end, and I realized that the most important part of birding is not necessarily spotting the birds that you set out to see, but rather the fun is in the chase. I guess the definition of birder mentioned earlier wasn't that far off point.